All right, welcome back. Peace of Mind podcast, episode 3. My name is Eddie Goddard. I'm joined with
Andrew Schmidt, and our guest here today, my father, Philip John Schmidt.
yes, indeed.
Yes.
Yeah. So those of you that are new here, we try to get a Bethel alumni, someone with something to say on the podcast, and we seem to have gotten a Bethel alumni on today.
Yeah, we snagged one. So to introduce my dad here, he is a graduate of Bethel College in 1996. And then I believe you did voluntary service right after that.
Correct.
And then chemistry teacher, and then now is a financial advisor.
Yes.
So were you a chemistry major at Bethel in your time, or slash education?
Biology major, chemistry minor, and then it wasn't until we were in voluntary service that I kind of picked up on the fact that I kind of liked education. So then after our 2 years in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, your mom and I went back to school, actually to Lawrence, to KU, and she got her master's in social work, and I got my teaching certificate.
Nice.
So one question that we are wanting to ask all of our guests is, what is one thing that during your time here at Bethel that you think really prepared you for life outside of school, and then one thing that you wish maybe you could have learned something more on, or like Bethel would have helped you with in that regards?
Okay.
Not to drop it on you or anything,
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things that I learned at Bethel was actually how to be a better writer. I was not, in high school, I was not a very good writer, was not pushed to be a writer. And here at Bethel, got lots of opportunities to write.
That's one way to say it.
At the time, it's no fun. It's like, every time you turn around, you're being asked to write a 5-page paper. And it's like, oh my gosh, it was something that in the 4 years got really frustrating, but it has served me well. And just the ability to think and organize and defend an idea and a topic and be able to expound on ideas and thoughts. Just amazing what that does for you in all facets of your life.
Yeah.
I remember, I was getting so annoyed. I had to write a 5-page paper for my badminton class. And I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. And it would come back and be marked up. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I have to rewrite a paper for badminton. And my friends in other colleges were like, oh, well, we got through 4 years of school, and I wrote one 5-page paper, one 10-page paper. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was one semester. And as painful as that is while you're going through it, it made a lot of other things a lot easier. When I got to grad school, my life was much, much easier because I had all that, getting my teaching degree, and then all the doctoral classes that I took after that. Oh my gosh, I can't imagine doing that stuff not having gone through Bethel. It would have been a very different experience. And then not even just in school stuff, with the work I have to do now, I'm writing a lot of things, just various pieces of writing that you do for work and whatnot. That's been by far, kind of the biggest takeaway.
Yeah.
And surprise, it's like, I can't believe that's, my biggest takeaway. But
Yeah, if I had $1 for every paper I've written at Bethel, I could almost about pay off my tuition. So, but yeah, that's a good kind of spin in the moment. Definitely don't want to do the papers, but
Definitely. Yeah, I think it's creative writing with Elizabeth Graber. I took that freshman year. The only thing you do in there is write papers, and I definitely hated it, but I got a lot better, and now I can just crank them out.
yeah, I mean, for myself, like I always kind of forget that there is a purpose to writing papers. It's all it kind of feels like busy work, but that's a good way to put it. It help prepare you. Yeah, critical thinking is also a great. I don't really think about that often, but if you're having to defend an argument, that makes total sense. So thank you.
And then the back half of that piece, was there anything that you wish that you could have got a little more out of during your time here? And if not, that's okay.
Yeah.
If there's something that you
it's
can think of.
Yeah, at the time, and I think this is true, of all, younger people, when you're going in it, there's a lot of times where you're like, okay, I'm taking this class because I have to. What I find is when I'm forced or told to do something, my stubborn streak comes out, and I absolutely don't want to do it. And so it's like, here, read this book, read this chapter, and we're going to discuss. I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. And so you kind of resist that, and you don't take it in. Looking back on it now, it's like, oh yeah, I really regret not putting forth my full effort in my classes and learning stuff. It's like, I'm a science geek. I really like learning, and when I think back to my time at Bethel and the professors I had, and it's like, oh, here's what I could have gotten out of everything, but that's what I took. I took much less than what I could have, and it's like, dang it, that was a big opportunity I missed. And it's, from what I've learned, raising kids and being a teacher, as we get older, we wish we could impart those lessons to people. But what I've learned is, as much as we try, it doesn't really matter. You have to experience that. I can tell you about it, and us old people try, and it just, you guys got pretty thick noggins. It just bounces off. There's just so much that you have to experience, and that, I remember, older people telling me stuff like that, and it's like, oh my God, whatever. But that's kind of a takeaway. It's like, you really get out of it what you put in, and so often, you're busy with other things, and so it's easy to move past some of the education stuff and just not get as much out of it as you could. So that's definitely a thing that I would regret and like to go back and change.
I think I would kind of second that a little bit. Like, at least for sure your freshman year, it's like your first time being able to do whatever you want. So it's like you're not even like at least for me, and I'm sure there's a myriad of other people as well. You're not even thinking about school really. You're just like, man, I got all this free time I can do.
Yeah.
Literally whatever.
Yeah, I completely agree. My freshman year, I grew up in a small town, Gossel. Everyone's doing everything. Your week is jam-packed. You're in all the sports, all the activities. So you get to Bethel, My freshman year did not go to like sporting events. I didn't go to like activities that were set up by the college, because I thought, I'm above that. I think I probably thought it was kind of cringe or whatever. I don't know why you think that, but I think it's definitely, and I've definitely developed past that. But you both are completely right. Like, it's just something. If I could go back, and I'm not even graduated yet, but these opportunities are there for you to experience and enjoy. Why else are you on campus if you're just gonna skip everything?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, and it's tough. I mean, it's a kind of a weird cultural thing, the way we raise kids. I would say kind of the way we do things in the U.S. is very different than European things. It's always been baffling to me how we treat you guys in high school, both as parents. It's like we do not easily give up control of you guys. We want to make sure that you're safe and all those things. And so we think that we're doing a good thing by putting the bumpers around you. But you don't experience life, and you don't learn how to deal with stuff. And then same thing in the high school. Again, as a high school teacher, it's like, high school kids are not treated much different than first graders in a lot of ways. Yeah. You get no freedoms to do anything. And so that transition from high school to college is such a big step. And it's like, wow, I think we could do a lot better about preparing you guys to go from high school to college than we do. Mm-hmm. It doesn't need to be that big. I mean, it's going to be a big step no matter what you do, but we could shrink that step so that it's not such a big transition. Yeah. I think that is kind of a disservice that we do, kind of at a societal level for getting people, to go to that next level. Mm-hmm. Because it's just such a big gap, and you guys are, freshmen are spending so much time just learning how to adjust and be people at that stage. It's hard to really focus on anything else.
Yeah, totally.
I wanted to ask you about, so you had mentioned you have a degree in biology, mm-hmm. and now you are a financial advisor, which has nothing to do with biology. I'm sure there's a lot of people that you might be, I guess, an underclassman or something. You're like, I'm not sure what I want to do. You get into a degree, and you're like, maybe you've advanced far enough. You're like, I can't change it. I just got to stay the mm-hmm. course. How did you navigate a degree, or not a degree change, but like a career change away from what you've got your degree in? And then, like, if there is there any advice that you could give with helping to kind of just go through life, I guess?
Pepto-Bismol.
Pepto-Bismol, okay.
Yeah. It's life is funny. It's like, like I said, I've always been a big science nerd. So I came to Bethel, got a biology degree, chemistry minor. I was like, hey, I'm going to go out and I'm going to be a scientist. I'm going to do something. And then in voluntary service, kind of learned, hey, I kind of like the teaching thing. And did that for 15 years. But then, started, becoming a little bit disenfranchised. Still enjoyed teaching, still enjoyed my content. Didn't appreciate some of the other aspects of teaching. But it's really super hard to change. I was unhappy, but at the time, you were about ready to start your freshman year
Right.
in high school.
8th grade, I think, is when you.
And so, had 3 kids in middle school, and all of a sudden decided, hey, I'm just done teaching. And your mom was pretty understanding, and kind of looking back on it, it's like, oh wow, I mean, that's it was a big deal. And actually kind of took a big leap and just quit, and I did not have a backup plan. And we had some savings from our time in Baltimore. When we moved, we had some money set aside, and it's like, okay, well, I can take some time and figure out what I'm going to do, and I did that, and kind of looked at a number of different things, but ultimately just settled on financial advising, and after about it was about a 8-month gap in there, and then went with that, and the rest is history.
Yeah, that's such a great, example. 15 years teaching, a lot of people would look at that and say, kind of locked into that. But, it's never too late, to turn around or, shift gears. I have had friends graduate different colleges, even Bethel, and realize that's not what I want to do. And they just shift courses, and it's like you said, I'm sure it's completely terrifying. Like, oh man, my whole life has been that, and then not anymore. But
yeah, well, and that just kind of going back to the stuff you do at Bethel. We've had this conversation before. You've been. It's like, oh, why does Bethel make me take these other classes? That's stupid,
Right?
And some other words, and again, at the time, it seems about the dumbest thing ever to make you take all these different things, but again, it's making you get out of your comfort zone, try some different classes. I've been amazed at how people are able to change, while at Bethel.
Right.
It's like, oh, some people come in and oh, man, I know exactly what I'm going to do. And they start taking classes. And then after first semester, nope, not doing that anymore. You're going to switch to something else. And it's just hard. There's so many things that we haven't experienced yet. You have no idea what's out there. And again, I love the idea of the liberal arts classes where it's like, oh, you know what? As a young person, you don't necessarily know what you want to do. Hey, make sure you try out a number of different things. You never know what's gonna tickle your fancy, and go with. And again, having that writing stuff has served me well. I do a lot of writing. In the financial world, I have to write up my reasons and do a lot of critical thinking to get stuff through underwriters and the back office. So, yeah, it's just it's not easy figuring out what you want to do for 40 years.
Yeah.
When you're 18 and 19, so I think it's pretty reasonable that you are going to do something different at some point.
I mean, it also is like, I mean, most people, like, when you go to college, you're like nursing or like things like this, and it's like, it's hard to, like, if you have a job in high school, get experience. Like most people, you work at McDonald's or, have like a simple job that's not like in a field of work that like you'd go get a degree in college. So yeah, it is. I guess I don't know what, like, the percentage of people, I guess J-Mo can look that one up over there. The percentage of people that don't follow the degree that they
change
Acquire.
a degree. Or,
Yeah.
I've heard like debaters talk about that. It's like they use that as kind of reason why college has failed. This generation. It's a big number. We'll get JMO.
75 to 80% of people switch their majors
While in college.
at least once during their undergraduate career.
Yeah.
What's the percentage of people that have jobs that aren't related to their major? Because I've heard people say like, hey, this percentage of people aren't using their degree basically, and that means college is irrelevant. And I would disagree with that, but I can see where they're coming from with that. We'll get the number before.
Mm-hmm.
It was he found that 75% of people changed their major at least once while in college.
Yeah, I changed my major like 4 times already. So.
Actually?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
But that's one of the, I kind of like, again, I understand where it might be annoying to the students, but, with Bethel starting to do the internship or, forcing you to kind of do some work, again, they're telling me I have to do this, but getting some experience, getting that, like when I was doing voluntary service, I had never really thought of teaching, but that's one of the things that I did for my time there. I'm like, I really like that. And then another thing I did was working in a clubhouse setting for severely and persistently mentally ill adults. While that was fascinating, I also took away from that, wow, I never want to do that as a career, so it kind of, one thing I liked and one thing I didn't. So that's still a benefit. I know certain things I didn't want to do. And that was only through a work experience.
Yeah, actually.
So, it's, you think you know what you want to do until you get some experience.
Yeah.
Did you find it, Braden?
I couldn't find the actual statistic, but it said 52% are working jobs that don't require a degree at all.
That they have the degree.
Like they went to college for 4 years
Yeah.
to get a degree, but are working a job that
Doesn't
doesn't
require.
even require a
If
degree.
that didn't carry, JMO just said 52% of college graduates are working jobs that don't require a college degree.
Well,
But yeah, and on that, like I've heard a lot of talk about how college isn't necessarily as relevant as it used to be. I'm curious what you guys, if you've heard of that or what you might think about that.
Well, yeah, it just kind of depends. I don't know that I would have met my wife had I not been at college, so that's a fairly significant plus to get into college. Meeting girls. But yeah, again, I think part of that goes back to, I would like to see, more of a gap year. Again, for people to get experience to see what they want to do. I get it. It just is hard for me to understand as how our culture says, we want 18-year-olds to go straight into college. You've had little to no life experience. You've got no real idea what you want to do. You know what your parents have done, but you don't really know what you're going to like. And we want you to go to college, get a lot of debt, and pick something that you've never experienced. I would love to see, us be a little bit more flexible on that. And hey, take some time out after you're 18, after you graduate high school, get some experience, do some volunteer work. One, you're a little bit more mature when you get to college. You've got some life experience. You have a little bit more idea what you want to do, and I would think that would, greatly help that issue of not using the degree afterwards or whatnot.
I would assume that, like, a lot of people, it's like they just felt pressure to go to college, and they necessarily, like, that wasn't something that they particularly wanted to do. They just felt that that was
sure.
what they needed to do, and then it's like, well, I didn't want this degree really anyways, but so I don't know.
How about you? Is that
No.
speaking from experience?
No.
Or? Oh, okay.
Pressured into it.
Pressured into it. But no.
I mean, yeah, like even if you're not like, even like I wanted to go to college, but there's still, you know, that background, you know, the expectation, I
Right.
guess. So, you know, and that's not a bad thing necessarily that, you know, your parents want something better for you, necessarily. So, but I mean, I guess it could be if you're just slogging your way through college, hating every minute of it. But I tend to find that's usually not the case. Even if you get a rough start, you kind of settle into things pretty well. Most everyone, I would say. You kind of find your people. And I would say that's like a big kind of not tangible thing about college is, you know, just the people. Like you said, you met your wife. My parents, you know, they're still very close with their college friends. Same with my grandparents. I hope that my college friend group will, you know, remain pretty close. Everyone says you'll find your people in college, and I think that's a valid statement. You know, in high school, you don't necessarily get to choose people that are your kind of people. You're just kind of put into the, and that can be a good thing also. But college, you get a bit more freedom to explore and, you know, make choices about who you want to be and who you want to hang around. So, and I wanted to hang around
Yes.
Andrew Schmidt
He chose
and
me.
J-Mo. So,
I think we have 1 minute of film, so we are going to go ahead and stop for a quick break and switch it out. All right, we are back from our little hiatus. A question I also wanted to ask, I've never asked this just at home or whatever, like how, so you're in a career field and then you change out of it to a completely different one well into your 40s. How old man over there.
say it like that.
How is that like? How were you able to like kind of just adapt to that and like kind of just land on your feet running?
Right. Well, it was something I was interested in. You know, like I remember, you know, I would be curious about something in the financial world for myself in our situation. I'm like, oh, well, so I do a little research, and then, you know, I remember talking to my students about stuff and sitting around the lunch table with my colleagues and telling them what I'd learned. You know, so it's like, it's something I had been interested in for a while, and then, you know, when the time came for a change, like I said, you know, I looked at a number of different career options, but then, you know, relatively quickly kind of decided that, you know, yeah, I think I want to do the financial advising thing. It wasn't anything I'd gone to school for. You know, I hadn't taken any, you know, business classes or any of that sort of stuff, but, you know, was interested in it. And so, you know, started talking to a couple of different people about, you know, what that's like and what I would need to do and, you know, kind of, just what the process was. And basically it's just like, well, you know, you go find a firm and you kind of get on with them and you've got to study and pass, you know, some tests to kind of get in. And then you kind of learn, you know, as you're going. And, you know, so I looked at a couple of different options, different firms, agencies, and there are some things I liked and didn't like about them. And then a friend of mine said, hey, I've got somebody I think you should talk to, and introduced me to where I work now. and it was a really good fit. I really liked the people that were there and the way that the office was run. And so through a number of conversations with them, so they said, yeah, we think that you have what it takes. And so they kind of sponsor you to take the exams. And so, I've always been a pretty good, learner, studier. And so, took their booklets and went home and studied and went and took the exam and, passed that one. Great. Let's move on to the next one, and took the next one. And so you take the exams to get the licenses to do the thing, to do, financial advising. But then it's like, okay, well, go. You're like, what? And the agency I was at, or I am still at,
Strategic Financial, by the way. He is.
Yeah, Strategic Financial Concepts. I didn't know if I should say it that or give it the name or not, but they do things very differently than a lot of the other places I've seen. So we, after I got the first number of tests done and was licensed to do things, then they gave us like a week-long course where there's about 5 or 6 of the new kind of applicants that would come in, and we had a week-long kind of study session where they were teaching us a lot of different ideas and concepts and just kind of the how-to of the business, and it's something that you continually work on. Another thing that we do in our office is, every Friday morning we have a 2.5-hour meeting, and we have a lot of stuff that goes on. We'll have vendors come in to give us product information, and then we also do other, just kind of learning things where we're learning, how to do what we do, why we do what we do, but there's a lot of on-the-job training, and in our agency, we kind of had a mentor program where you kind of get on and you have somebody that kind of shows you the ropes and will sit in with you on your first meetings, give you a lot of feedback, and you sit in on their meetings to see how they do things and just kind of learn in that fashion. But yeah, it's an interesting process.
Yeah.
So with being a financial advisor, is there any tidbits or just advice that you can give college age students or people just graduating? You don't have a lot of money, so what are some things that you would recommend young people in general to do with their money?
Just start. Everybody thinks, I need to have a certain amount of money to get started. Mm-hmm. It's like, I need to have $50,000 in the bank before I go talk to somebody. That's not true at all. It's my intent is to sit down with you guys and talk about that. Hey, your first job, it's like, yeah, you don't have much money. Can you do a lot of things? No. But the most important thing is starting. So in your first job, hey, if you can put back $50 a month, starting an account, starting to put $50 a month back is what you do. And then, 6 months later, you get a pay raise. Okay, well, take part of the pay raise and add that. Okay, well, now I'm doing $60 a month. I got a pay raise. I'm going to put $60 a month instead of $50, and I'm going to take, another $20 or $30 a month, and I'm going to live on that. I'm going to up my lifestyle a little bit, and just kind of keep doing that. And then, so pretty soon, it's like, within a couple years of getting out and working, my $50 a month has gone to $200 a month. oh, and 300, and oh, well, now I'm 30, now I'm putting $1,000 a month. So just by slowly doing that increase, it's amazing how that grows. And the earlier you start, it is just absolutely phenomenal what it will grow into. Like I said, doesn't seem like much, but that $50, $100 you're putting away now at 22 is going to turn into $1 million probably when you're 50, and you might have $2-3 million by the time you're 65, 67. It's that time factor is really super important. Start now. I'd say that's probably the
saving
biggest.
Is you would say is the number one thing.
Yeah, invest. Putting that $50, not just putting that under the mattress, but putting the $50 a month into investments, into something that can work for you. And again, starting with an advisor, I think is pretty important. Self
plug here,
right? But it's like oh well, you don't want to try and be your own doctor,
right?
And so it's like it's the same thing. It's like oh well, you go to the person that's going to help you. Oh, you broke something, you go to the doctor to get fixed. Oh, your tooth hurts, you go to the dentist to get that looked at. Oh, hey, I need some help on the finances. Well, you go to a financial advisor. Mm-hmm. Now, are you going to, is a 22-year-old going to go to a financial advisor who's been in the business 40 years and whatnot? It's like, no, that advisor has a certain clientele, and they're not going to want to work with
someone with
a 22-year-old
that they're not going to be able to.
But it's like
do much with.
Because it's like what you're needing at this point is not too
super
sophisticated.
Like labor and intensive.
It's we're not needing to layer these 4 products together to produce this benefit and spin off these 3-4 things. It's like I need to put $50 away in an investment. So working with a newer advisor, somebody who's maybe just a year or 2 older than you, is great. Then you develop that relationship with them, and as they get older and better at what they're doing, that's when you are maturing and needing some more sophisticated products and strategies. And so it's really kind of goes hand in hand, and then you've got somebody that you've worked with for 20, 30 years, and they know you and you know them, and they understand exactly what you need. And so just starting out, and then start now, and even if you don't have much, start talking with somebody so that they can advise you. There's just getting into this field, it's just amazing how much I didn't know. Again, you think you know what you're doing, but you get in, you're like, oh wow, there, look behind the curtain, and there's a lot of stuff I was not aware of. Sure. and how it really goes together is very different.
I see, like, on TV, you just get bombarded with, like, insurance ads. Is there any, and that just kind of makes you feel like, well, what insurance am I not getting? Is there any, like, in terms of, like life insurance and all this kind of stuff, is that something that a younger person needs, or?
That's interesting that you say that. That, I would say, was probably the biggest eye-opener for me. That, I was not too excited about life insurance. It's like, oh, I'm young, I'm healthy, I don't need it. The flexibility and the usefulness of life insurance, if used correctly, by a licensed practitioner, how amazing and important that is to a financial plan. I would say that is the most important thing, bar none.
Is to get life insurance.
Permanent life insurance. There's a difference. Permanent life insurance
What does permanent mean in terms of like you're like set, like you once you start, as long as you keep paying, like you have that, or like I guess I have no idea what.
And again, that's there's.
I don't know anything.
There's so many different products and things you can do, and bells and whistles that you can add on. So there's two main types. There's term insurance and permanent insurance, or whole life. Term insurance is where you say, oh, I'm gonna pay $15 a month every month for 10 years. It's kind of like renting versus buying a house.
Okay.
You rent, you give your money every month to the landlord, to the insurance company, and they're saying, okay, well, you get your life insurance for this 10-year period or 20-year period, whatever the time period is. And typically that payment will stay the same for that 10-year period. At the end of the 10-year period, your life insurance goes away, and all the money that you paid also goes away. So you're like, oh, well, I just wasted the money. Well, you got 10 years of guarantee if something happened to you that your beneficiaries would get that money. But in essence, yeah, that money's gone. And then you can start a new 10-year or 20, whatever, term policy, but it's going to be a lot more expensive than the first one was, because you're 10, 20 years older.
Yeah.
A permanent policy is a lot more expensive for the same amount of insurance, but it doesn't go away. So maybe it's 3 times as expensive for the same coverage, but it doesn't go away. It's always there. In addition, those premium dollars you're putting in build cash value in the policy, and that's depending on the type of policy. And then that's one of the things that helps you do other things in your financial world. But in a very quick nutshell, term policy is cheap, but it goes away. Permanent is way more expensive, but it's always there. It's not, will it be there when I pass away? It's how much is it going to grow into?
With permanent, that's just an investment portfolio essentially, right? That there's like more strings attached. Am I correct in that? And the insurance side, obviously, but you said the principal or
the cash value. Yeah. Again, there's so many different options. It can be. There are types of permanent insurance where you have more of a investment option built into the life insurance product. So yes, it can be. Mm-hmm. It doesn't always have to be that way. Again, that was one of the things that just floored me. It was just how many different products there were in the insurance world, and all the different things you can do. It's pretty amazing.
We might have to have another episode just dedicated to
financial
questions. I do have a question, kind of on the opposite of Andrew's question. What do you think the young people nowadays do the worst at with their money? Like, college age students, if you could say, hey, stop doing this.
I can answer that as the person who does it. As soon as I get my paycheck, I blow it all.
So yeah, if You take all your money and buy hats.
Yeah, that's true. I do have an
not even a
addiction
joke.
to buying hats.
This guy
So
buys a hat every month.
it is a problem.
But yeah,
And fast food.
it's not having that budget. And again, it's like, hey, you worked hard for that. You need to be able to spend the money. That's why I'd say, the first job you get, do that $50 a month and have that automatically taken out of your your checking account, so that it's going to your savings, and it's an automatic thing, so that you
don't ever see it. It's just
don't
getting
ever
put
see
away.
it. And so make your savings automatic, just like you do a lot of things in life, and then you don't have to feel bad about the spending that you do. You're like, oh well, I've spent all my money. Oh, that's okay. I was meant to. I worked hard. I did all this because, I know I'm already doing my savings and doing all of that. So I kind of get the permission slip to spend the money that I want to and not feel bad about it, because I'm doing the savings already. And again, you start out, and again, every time you get a pay raise, hey, 10%, 15% of the pay raise goes into the savings, and I spend the other stuff.
You had mentioned also like the savings part is like investing that. Like when I think, as someone with no money, when I think of investing, to me it just seems like you're like gambling with that money. There's limitless options of companies that you can give your dollar to and say, hey, turn this into $100. How can you make that simpler on yourself in terms of like, just like how, in layman's terms, how can you explain what investing is?
Well, I was going to say, to make it easier, that answer is simple. You find an advisor. That, again, that's what the advisor is there for. You don't need to know everything that the advisor, you get the right advisor, and they help you make those decisions. Again, it's just, there's so many different options. If you go out and go to the stock market and pick a stock, that can be kind of like gambling. Well, you don't know what's going to happen to that particular stock in this particular economy, and 3 months from now, what's it looking like? What are the cycles doing? Hey, international, how is that affecting? Topically, hey, we've got all these tariffs going on. What's that's going to happen to our economy and whatnot? Again, you as a new college grad or whatever, why should you know that stuff? You don't need to know that stuff. You just need to find a person that you like and can work with and trust, and they're supposed to know that stuff. You don't need to be a investment guru to start doing that. I would suggest not necessarily trying to pick a particular stock. At the very beginning, when you're doing the $50 a month, put that into a mutual fund. You don't have to think about it. You've got instant diversification, and it's not really that important that you pick the right stock right now. It's just that you are starting. It's the time in the market that will help. That will be your friend. The stock market, has a lot of variability. There's lots of ups and downs on any given day, week, or year. But over years, there's that nice steady uptick. Yeah. So, in 1 week from another, it can be up, down, or sideways. But year on year, year over year, it goes up.
Yeah.
So I'm about to get some free financial advice. Watch this. If I am genuinely curious about this. If I were to graduate, and I think $6,000 is the maximum per year, and just put $6,000 a year into a Roth IRA just on the S&P 500, how foolish or viable would that be? Because it's very simple, but
You see this on TikTok?
no. But I'm very curious about because the S&P 500 is historically kind of
Is that like
safe.
the top 500 stock options?
I believe
Yeah.
it's 500 companies in America. So.
So first of all, right now it's 7,000
$7,000?
that you can put in. And that,
Do you have 7,000?
No.
and so that, again, that stuff changes from year to year. But, what is it? I've seen something, they talk about it. It's like, okay, if you would put $1,000 a year from when you turn like 18 to 28 or 20 to 30, something like that. If you'd put $1,000 a year away, and
like just rolling it up like 1,000, like just keep that money
year
in there?
20, you put $1,000 in the S&P 500. When you're 21, you put another 1,000. So you essentially invest $10,000, but you do it starting when you're 20. If that's all you put in, then so your initial investment, you're all in for $10,000. I can't remember the exact number, but it's like, oh well, you should have $1 million by the time you turn 65. I mean, the stuff is going to vary and whatnot, but it's that kind of order of magnitude that investing early can do for you. So again, it doesn't matter that, I can only do, $25 a month, 50, whatever. It does that.
You just got to start.
Just starting is the most important. And then, because then, you just do those 10 to 15% increases when you get pay raises, and it's amazing how it grows, and you don't even miss it.
So you've talked, the underlying theme is find a financial advisor. What would be, let's say you found one, what would be like a red flag that they are not like the best fit for you, or like someone who like you shouldn't entrust with your money?
That's a good question. Somebody who doesn't listen to you. Somebody who doesn't explain things to you. I always try and tell people that, my job is to educate them about the pros and cons of any given product or strategy, and they need to make the choice that best suits them, is how I try and do things. I don't want to ever be telling you, you need to do this. No, it's like, well, here's the pros and cons of this, this, and this. What do you think makes the most sense for you in your situation? So it's just kind of hard. Do you trust that person? It's amazing to me the information I need to get from somebody in order to do my job. I mean, there's certain pieces of information I have to have because government regulations, but it's like, wow.
Well, yeah, you probably know all the financial situation.
In order for me to really do my job well, I need to know
a lot of
everything about your financial situation. So the amount of trust that a client has to put in me is phenomenal. And we talk about this all the time as advisors. It's like, it's kind of nuts, the information that I will get from somebody I just actually 2 days ago had a first meeting, never met these people before, and I got all of their personal banking information. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, I've got everything I would need to just absolutely destroy them financially. and they just gave it to me.
That's crazy.
And so the responsibility that I as an advisor have is just through the roof to protect that information and do the absolute best I can for those people because of the trust that they place in me. So find somebody that you feel comfortable talking with and that you can trust.
So
and
relationships are big.
Yeah, the relationship is huge because you're going to be with them a really long time.
Yeah.
All right, we are coming up on the hour mark
Winding down.
of the podcast. I just wanted to say thank you for lending us an hour of your time,
Yeah.
coming on, answering our questions.
You are very welcome.
I really hope some young kiddos out there are listening.
Oh, yeah.
'Cause I think this is important information to be disseminated.
Yeah.
Again, thank you so much.
It was my pleasure.
This has been the Peace of Mind podcast. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for listening and watching.
All right.